Will from Tested. It is time for yet another edition of the Tested Mailbag. I'm sitting here in a different location. It's very suspicious. But today I have a boatload of awesome questions, so let's just jump right in and get started. The first question is about Windows and hard drives. Hey Will, I have an old hard drive with Windows on it that I now want to use as a backup storage drive. What is the best and most complete way to wipe a hard drive? So there's a couple of things to think about. If you're worried about security, then you want to use a utility to actually wipe and zero out the hard drive. Sounds like you're probably not worried too much about security. So just open it up in My Computer, right-click on it, go to Format, boom, do a quick format. The data will still be there, so the FBI could find it or whatever. But for your intents and purposes, selecting format, selecting the right drive, selecting quick format will wipe the data. Something to think about when you're using an old hard drive as a backup drive is that hard drives don't live forever. They have lots of moving parts. They have really, really tiny tolerances. So a little tiny bit of error on them will wipe out a lot of data on the drive. So don't use them as the only place that you have data stored on the computer. Use them as the secondary or tertiary place. Will you ever do a video on making the perfect espresso? Something I've kind of thought about. It seems like it's an order of magnitude more expensive to buy an espresso machine than it is to make just a good cup of coffee. It's a lot more complexity. There's a lot of ways to muck it up. It's really something that you need to buy a high-end espresso machine. Those $100 things that they sell at the mall really don't cut it if you're serious about having a real espresso with a nice crema on top. I kind of think the entry level for that is like a Rancilio Silvia, something like that. You can quickly spend $2,000 or $3,000 on an espresso machine. So I don't know how interested you guys are in that. If it's something you'd like us to explore, we can. I don't know what the interest level is. I almost feel like, I have an okay espresso machine at home for pulling single shots. It's definitely very fidgety, but it's also so finely tuned to individual machines. Like my machine, the process for getting a perfect shot is going to be completely different than a different type of machine. So, post in the comments if you guys want to see some more espresso stuff, and I'll see what we can do. No promises on that though, because it's going to be really expensive. So. I'm coming up on purchasing a new phone, and I'm looking at Android. I really don't want an iPhone, but here in Canada our phone options are very limited. The Desire Z is apparently going to be here soon, so I was wondering if you plan on reviewing it or the Desire HD. We just posted a quick look of the Desire HD either Friday or Saturday. I'm not sure which day it's going to go up. The Desire Z, I don't know. It's a little hard for us to review international phones just because we can't really use them the way that you guys would use them in Canada or Europe or wherever. We talked to the HTC folks the other day about Desire HD especially. I'll see what we can do. I really don't know that it's fair to review a 1900 megahertz phone in an area where we don't really have 1900 megahertz coverage. So, I'll have to think about that. Actually, I don't have a yes or no. If there's a lot of interest in seeing those phones reviewed, I'll see what I can do. Maybe we'll see if we can find somebody in the UK or Canada, or maybe get Matt or one of our Canadian friends to review them for us. On a recent podcast, you mentioned in an offhand manner that a monitor could be used instead of a TV. This would be perfect for me since I don't have cable, but do have a home theater PC and a 360. What monitors would you recommend and what limitations are there? Any other tips? I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. If you're asking whether you can use a monitor to hook up to your cable box with HDMI or whatever and use that to watch TV on, that is definitely doable. In fact, most of the monitors that you buy today that are cheap TN panels that are they have a 1080 resolution, so it's like 1920 by 1080 or something like that, are actually TV panels just with a little bit different controller and no tuner. So what you would need to watch TV on those is something that will tune content in. The other route to go, of course, is across the internet and to either beg, buy, borrow, or steal content from the internet and play that on a computer that's attached to a monitor with speakers and the whole 9 yards. That stuff is a little bit janky still, I think. It's not ready for prime time. If you're comfortable fiddling with it, then it's a good way to maybe save a couple of bucks a month on cable. On the other hand, if you just want to plug a monitor and make sure it has an HDMI port, and you should be good to go with cable boxes and Xboxes and home theater PCs and stuff like that. The next question is a good one. Is the future open or closed? You know, I want the future to be open. I think open is the right direction to go just from a philosophical standpoint, and you know, because I think having open systems allows for innovation and people to build on other people's work. And I think that's good for everybody ultimately, you know, us as a species. However, it seems like the kind of business model pioneered by the music industry, where things start really locked down and then get progressively more open over time, probably the way we're going to end up going. So, I mean, I think when we look and see how movies and ebooks and how those markets work out over the next 5 or 10 years, I think we'll know a little bit more. I mean, really, a lot of it is about finding new ways to make money with old products that aren't necessarily, hey, if you buy this, then it's yours. So, you know, for example, music industry, most of the musicians now are making more money on touring and t-shirt sales and stuff like that than actually selling CDs, which it turns out may have always been the case for the big label musicians, but, you know, is maybe not the way we perceived it as consumers of music, people who buy music. So, I mean, I think let's wait and see. I hope it's open. I think worst case is that it's closed. I think we'll probably end up somewhere in between. I have a monkey shoe question. Can you drive in the monkey shoes? Yes, yes you can. It's just like driving barefoot. You have toes. I mean, generally I push a little higher up with the balls of my feet on the pedals. Other than that, pretty straightforward. The next question is about wireless networks. Should I get a PCI or USB wireless adapter for my computer, I assume? I am in the market for an N wireless adapter for my desktop. The computer is low to the ground. I was thinking a USB adapter could be placed in a better spot with my USB hub, but I am concerned about the performance of a USB adapter. It's a good question. In the old days, when you were talking about 802.11g, which was 54 megabits, I would definitely have said buy the USB adapter, because then you buy a cheap USB extension cable and you can put the USB adapter way, way up high really easily. N's significantly faster than G though, so I haven't actually tested N wireless USB adapters. So I mean, the thing you can do with a PCI adapter or PCI Express adapter, which is probably more likely now, is get an extension cable for your antenna. So you need to figure out what kind of connector is on the end of the card and the antenna, and just get a coax cable that will extend that 3, 5, 7 feet, however long you think you need to make it. I wish I had a better answer for you. Unfortunately, I don't. The PCI is definitely going to be the better performer if you can fix the antenna situation, though. So the cables are all relatively standard. D-Link uses one size, Linksys uses another, Netgear uses one of the two that the other ones use. Basically, figure out what kind of connector. It'll have it on the spec sheet probably for your PCI Express card. This is an upgrading question. I have a computer with the following specs. It's an Athlon 64X2 5600 plus, 4 gigabytes of DDR2 DRAM, and an 8800 GTX. I suppose that's a GeForce. Should I upgrade my entire computer or just get a better graphics card? Heard on the last email show that you said a GTX 460 is a good card for the buck. Okay, so first off, that machine is probably at this point 4 years old, so you're probably getting into whole upgrade territory. You're going to need a new memory, you're going to need a new CPU, you're going to need a new motherboard, because you've pretty much tapped out memory, motherboard, and CPU for what you have. And the video card, when you're replacing that other stuff, you might as well swap out the video card too. If you want to do an incremental upgrade, you can probably, assuming that has to be a PCI Express system, so you could buy a new video card now, wait 3 months, and then upgrade the CPU, memory, and motherboard later. That's fine. Chuck in a new $75 1.5 terabyte hard drive while you're at it, and all of a sudden you have a brand new computer. When you're picking video card, it's really important to think about what your monitor resolution is. If you're on a 22-inch panel, a small like 1680 by 1050 panel, there's no reason to spend money on a $500 video card because there's not enough pixels to really stress those low-end cards. So GTX 460, Radeon 5830, any of those are going to be fine. Spend like $200, $250 at the outside. If you have a 24-inch panel, 1920 by 1200, or 27-inch panel, which is even bigger, then you need to start thinking about 5850s, GTX 470s, that kind of stuff. And then if you have a 30-inch panel, then you might be looking at a 5870 or even dual something else's. So that's that. there you go. Buy a new computer, enjoy your upgrade. Buy something that's going to last you a long time. That machine's lasted you a long time, I'm sure. This is a coffee question. What is the best way to take a thermos of coffee with me to work? Currently, I set up a drip brew coffee maker the night before, but I'm betting you have a better option to make tastier coffee to go. Thanks and keep up the good work. And that's from Dave Kober. So Dave, that's tricky. I have yet to find a good thermos that I like. I mean, if I were doing that, what I would do, I don't like grinding the coffee the night before just because a lot happens in the first 4 or 5 minutes after you grind up the beans and you lose a lot of the gas and a lot of the oil evaporates off. So I would say if you want to make your coffee tastier at work the next day, take the extra 5 minutes, grind it in the morning, chuck it in the basket, take a look at a Chemex. I really don't like those, the machines that are like 2 travel mugs where you grind and they're just not very good. So what I would say is get a good conical filter drip machine if that's what you like. Put a paper filter in there. I don't like the gold baskets just because they don't filter out any of the stuff that's bad for you in coffee. And give it a try. Get a good double-walled vacuum insulated thermos if it has some sort of aerogel or Thinsulate or foam, or I don't know what they're insulating thermoses with these days. I'm a 1 cup a day guy, so I drink it in the car on the way to work. This is a great question about backing up. Over the years, I've managed to amass around 300 recordable DVDs of stuff I've backed up. I was wondering if I should start moving data over to the external hard drives. I have old CDRs that are unreadable now, and I'm wondering if this will happen to my DVD-Rs. So there's, first thing first, there's some ways to preserve your CDs and DVDs. First is to record on high-quality media. The stuff that comes on the spindles usually isn't that good. So if you're looking at archiving stuff for a long time, gold CDs supposedly last longer than anything else. Higher quality DVDs, buy the good stuff if you want it to last for 20 or 30 years. Keep it out of heat. Heat is bad for recordable media. Keep it out of direct sun, also bad for recordable media. Don't let it get damp. Stack them vertically. All the normal stuff that applies to CDs. No temperature swings, they're bad. So don't put it in the attic. Better to be in the garage or the basement and up off the ground where they won't get wet if you have a flood or something like that. So beyond that, it depends on what you're backing up. If you're backing up large files like even photos, raw photos, whatever, video files, music, probably better to put that on a hard drive, honestly, because you don't want to have to redo these backups every 5 years. If you're doing a lot of small files, a good option is to look at some cloud backup places. Mozy is really good. I actually use Dropbox to back up some of the stuff like my tax returns and stuff like that, important documents, contracts, all that kind of stuff. If you're keeping system backups, if you're just backing up your machine and you have 10-year-old backups of your machine, probably you're okay letting that stuff go. I mean, really take a long, hard look at what you're backing up and decide whether the data that you're keeping for decades is actually worth that. So precious memories, photos, music, master tracks, videos of your kid, definitely worth keeping. A system backup from the time before 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 you rebuilt your machine, probably not so important. I mean, really, are you really going to go back and play that Stone Keep save game from 1997? Probably not. This is a great question about RSI. As people who often use technology, such as phones, keyboards, game controllers, and mice, do you have any issues with repetitive stress injury, carpal tunnel syndrome and all that stuff? Or potentially any tips for dealing with it on a daily basis? So I have actually had problems in the past. I wrote a book a few years ago which involved me sitting in front of a computer for like 18 hours a day for 6 months. And at the end of some of those days, I would have to literally put ice packs on my wrists because I couldn't move my fingers. Since then, I've switched to a split keyboard, which helps a lot. So the trick is maintain right angles on your elbows, knees, and hips. So don't sit slouch back, tilted forward, too low or too high. You want to keep at the right height. You want to have your elbows even with the table or your keyboard surface. And then you want to not bend your wrists while you're typing or using the mouse. So you don't want to be, this is the worst possible position to be using your mouse in. You want to always have your mouse at a kind of claw grip with your wrist at a down angle rather than an up angle. Because what this does is the tendons that move your fingers, fuck. Benny's going to kill me. When you do it like this, what happens is the tendons that move your fingers get all jammed up, and there's a path through the bones in your wrist called the carpal tunnel. And when they do that, they have trouble moving. And you can actually, like if you do this, I can feel clicking in my wrist as that happens, as they kind of grind against the bones. So avoid that at all costs. I really like the Microsoft Natural Keyboard 4000. It's not the best keyboard ever, but it is without a doubt the most comfortable keyboard I've ever used. And the thing that's great about it is it actually tilts down away from your hand, so it forces you to use the right kind of directions on your fingers. The other thing is to avoid using the mouse wherever possible. You know, the mouse is inherently an uncomfortable way to use the computer. If you're clicking a lot, playing games that require a ton of clicking, some flash games are really, really bad about that. Minimize the amount of clicking you have to do. If you're using applications, you can use keyboard shortcuts instead of clicking the mouse. 100% definitely use the keyboard shortcuts. Learn that stuff. That made a huge amount of difference for me. And the other thing is to listen to your body. So if you start getting pain, if you start feeling numbness or tingling in your hands, especially numbness and tingling, go talk to your doctor. Don't just assume it's going to get better. Don't stop and wait for it to get better. Go to the doctor, get them to check you out, because it can actually be a symptom of something that's significantly more serious when you have numbness in your fingers. It may not be RSI or carpal tunnel. Fry's Electronics or Best Buy. If you're lucky enough to be someplace where you're at where you have Fry's, it's a pretty good place. Their prices are frequently comparable with online stores like Newegg or Amazon. I mean, I got no beef with Fry's. Best Buy, on the other hand, is typically kind of expensive for computer stuff. So they're fine on like video cards and things like that, it seems like. But external hard drives, unless they're on sale, are usually much cheaper online or at other like local screwdriver shops and places like that. What is the better Windows OS, Microsoft Bob or Windows ME? Neither of those. Well, first off, Bob wasn't an OS. It was just a shell on top of the shell, which was an OS, which was on top of the OS. So it was a shell for Windows 3.1, which was a shell for DOS. Windows ME was, at least it was an OS. It was bad, could have been worse. I got to say Windows ME on this one. I mean, I got nothing else there. This is a question about the creepy toe shoes, which are very popular, it seems. I like the look of your creepy toe shoes, and I am in need of a change. My ankles and feet hurt using sneakers, athletic shoes, almost anything. But $120 is too much if I can't try them first to see if they'll work. Is there any way to try them first? Well, Vibram has a pretty good return policy. You'll have to pay shipping, but beats eating $120. I'd rather pay $10 to ship something back. Also, they're in a lot of stores. So REI has them in stock. You can try them on there, walk around the store a little bit. There are lots of other, like Lombardi's Athletics in the Bay Area has it. Check like climbing stores, athletic stores, places like that. Any place that has, it's like a running store specialty will probably have either them or one of the other kind of open running shoes. Yeah, so that's, and I think there's a store locator on Vibram.com, so check that out. So I guess that does it for the mailbag this week. If you have questions, of course, you can submit them at formspring.me/tested. I answer them every Friday, so Thursday night, Friday morning is the best time to get them in, and I appreciate you guys asking all these awesome questions. Thanks, and we will see you guys next week.